Welcome back to the story of the Nigerian billionaire who shocked society by falling in love with a woman everyone believed was just a beggar. In part 1, we saw how Nathan Adeyemi, a powerful businessman whose empire in Lagos was slowly collapsing, met a mysterious woman on the streets and offered her help. What started as a simple act of kindness quickly turned into something deeper. Despite the mockery from Lagos elites, Nathan followed his heart and even proposed to her in front of the city's most powerful people. But just when love seemed to win, the truth began to surface. Behind Nathan's failing business lies a dangerous secret. Billions are missing from his company, and someone very close to him may be responsible. And the woman everyone underestimated? She may know far more about business, power, and financial systems than anyone imagined. Now in part 2, the story takes a dramatic turn. Secrets will be revealed. Enemies hiding inside Nathan's company will begin to panic, and the mysterious woman will finally step out of the shadows. The question is, who is she really? Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of this powerful story. Now, let's continue. Morning sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows of Nathan's mansion in Ikoyi, painting warm, golden reflections across the polished marble floors. The house was unusually quiet. Nathan had barely slept. The words she spoke the previous night kept replaying in his mind. This isn't mismanagement. It's betrayal. He stood in the kitchen area, a sleek, modern space with matte black cabinets, gold handles, and a wide island counter topped with white quartz. Nigerian contemporary art hung on the walls, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. She walked in calmly, dressed in a simple cream blouse and fitted trousers. Even in simple clothes, she carried herself with effortless confidence. Nathan watched her carefully. "You woke up early," he said. "I had work to finish," she replied. He frowned. "Work?" She placed a tablet on the island counter and turned it toward him. "Your company accounts." Nathan stepped closer. Rows of numbers filled the screen. Vendor names, payment channels, contract figures. But something looked wrong. "These figures? I've seen these reports before," he said. "Yes," she replied calmly, "but you've seen the edited version." Nathan's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" She zoomed into one of the transactions. This vendor was paid 3 times for the same contract. Nathan squinted. "Maybe administrative duplication." She shook her head. "Look again." She tapped another file. The same vendor appeared under 3 slightly different company names. "Shell companies," she said quietly. Nathan felt his stomach tighten. "Are you telling me my own staff created fake vendors?" "Not just fake vendors," she said. "They built an entire laundering structure." Nathan sank into a stool. "How much?" She hesitated for a moment, then she said it. "Close to 5 billion naira." The words landed like a hammer. Nathan rubbed his face slowly. "For how long?" 3 years, she answered. His voice hardened. "Balogun." She didn't respond. Nathan looked up at her. "You think my CFO is involved?" She met his gaze calmly. "I think he's either involved or dangerously incompetent." Nathan laughed bitterly. "Great options." She folded her arms. "You trusted too easily." "That again?" he sighed. "You hired friends instead of professionals," she continued. "You gave them access without building control systems." Nathan looked up sharply. "You sound like someone who runs multinational companies." She didn't answer. Instead, she tapped the screen again. "Look here." Another set of records appeared. "These accounts lead to offshore transfers." Nathan's eyes widened. "Offshore?" "Yes." "Where?" She turned the tablet so he could read. "Switzerland." Nathan leaned back slowly. "My own people." Her voice softened slightly. "Power attracts opportunists." He stared at her. "How did you even find this in one night?" She gave a small smile. "I told you. Numbers speak." He shook his head slowly. "No, that's not normal analysis." She leaned against the counter. "Maybe I've had practice." Nathan studied her again. Everything about her suddenly felt different. Her posture, her confidence, her precision. This was not a woman who learned business from books alone. He stood. Come with me. Where? The office. Within an hour, Nathan's Rolls-Royce was pulling into the headquarters of Adeyemi Holdings in Victoria Island. Staff noticed immediately, not just that Nathan arrived early, but that she was with him again. Whispers spread across the building. She's back. Maybe she's his assistant now. No, she's more than that. Inside the executive floor, tension hung in the air. Nathan called an emergency meeting with his senior management team. Balogun entered last. His face looked confident, but his eyes flickered briefly when he saw her seated beside Nathan. Nathan didn't waste time. He placed the tablet on the table. Explain these transactions. Balogun glanced down. His expression changed for just a second. But Nathan noticed. Sir, Balogun said calmly, these are operational payments. She spoke gently. No, they're not. Everyone turned to look at her. Balogun forced a polite smile. And you are? A concerned observer, she replied. He chuckled lightly. With respect, financial analysis requires expertise. She nodded slowly. You're right. Then she tapped the screen, which is why I'm curious why 3 identical payments were routed through shell vendors before being transferred to an offshore account ending in 4417. Balogun froze. The room went silent. Nathan slowly turned toward him. Answer her. Balogun cleared his throat. Sir, this is being misunderstood. She leaned forward slightly. No, it's being exposed. Nathan's voice dropped. Balogun. Sweat formed on the man's forehead. But what Nathan didn't know was this. Balogun wasn't the only one involved, and exposing him would trigger a chain reaction far bigger than Nathan's company. As the meeting room fell into heavy silence, Nathan looked at the woman beside him again. His voice was quiet. Who are you, really? For the first time since they met on that Lagos street. She didn't smile. The silence inside the Adeyemi Holdings boardroom felt heavier than the Lagos heat outside. Nathan's executives sat stiffly around the long, polished conference table. The large glass windows behind them overlooked the busy financial district of Lagos. But no one dared look outside. All eyes were on the woman seated beside Nathan, and on Balogun. Sweat had begun forming along the CFO's forehead. Nathan leaned forward slowly, his fingers interlocked on the table. Balogun, he said calmly, I asked you a question. Balogun forced a weak smile. Sir, these numbers are being taken out of context. Financial structures can be complicated. She interrupted softly. No, she said. Her voice was calm, but it cut through the room like a blade. Financial structures are only complicated when someone is hiding something. Several executives shifted in their seats. Balogun's voice hardened slightly. With respect, madam, this is an internal corporate matter. I don't believe an outsider should. Nathan slammed his palm lightly on the table. Enough. The room froze. She's speaking, Nathan said quietly, and right now she's the only person in this room making sense. Balogun's jaw tightened. Nathan turned to her. Show them. She nodded. With a few quick movements on the tablet, a detailed financial chart appeared on the large presentation screen. Layers of transactions unfolded like a web. Vendor accounts, transfer points, offshore routing. Gasps quietly filled the room. Over the last 3 years, she explained calmly, Adeyemi Holdings has lost approximately 4.8 billion naira through fraudulent vendor contracts. One executive nearly choked. 4 point what? She zoomed further into the data. These companies do not exist. They are shell entities, created solely to receive inflated payments. Balogun shifted uncomfortably. Nathan's voice dropped dangerously low. Balogun, tell me you didn't do this. Balogun swallowed hard. Sir, I swear. She tapped the screen again. Another document appeared. Bank authorization signatures. Nathan's eyes widened. Balogun's digital approval appeared on every transfer. The room erupted. You signed them. This is fraud. Sir, this is criminal. Balogun suddenly stood up. Okay, he shouted. The room went silent again. Yes, I approve them. Nathan slowly stood too. Why? Balogun laughed nervously. You think this company was collapsing because of relationships? No, sir. Your competitors have been circling your empire like vultures. Nathan's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Balogun hesitated. Then he said quietly, I wasn't the only one involved. The room froze. Nathan felt a chill run through his spine. Who else? Balogun looked around the room. 3 executives lowered their eyes. Nathan's chest tightened. You. One by one, the truth surfaced. Senior managers, contract officers, finance supervisors. They had all been siphoning funds through the shell network. Nathan turned away, staring out the window toward the busy skyline of Lagos. For years he had trusted these people, given them power, given them access, and they had quietly dismantled his empire from the inside. Behind him, voices argued, accusations flew, but Nathan barely heard them. His mind was focused on something else. He slowly turned back toward the woman beside him. She remained calm, composed, almost unsurprised. Nathan studied her again. Every detail suddenly felt different. The confidence, the knowledge, the authority. This wasn't a woman who simply observed patterns. This was someone trained at the highest level of corporate intelligence. Nathan spoke quietly. You knew. She met his eyes. I suspected. He shook his head slowly. No, you didn't just suspect. His voice dropped. You walked into my company and dismantled a billion-naira fraud in less than 24 hours. The room fell silent again. Even the corrupt executives stopped arguing. Nathan stepped closer to her. Who are you? For the first time since they met on the street, she took a slow breath. Then she stood and calmly removed the simple scarf she often wore. Her posture changed instantly. Not like a beggar, not even like a guest, like a leader. She looked directly at Nathan. My name, she said quietly, is Isabella Okonkwo. The name hit the room like thunder. One executive gasped. Okonkwo? Another whispered in disbelief. From the Okonkwo Global Group? Nathan's eyes widened. He knew that name. Everyone in African business circles knew it. The Okonkwo family controlled investment networks across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Their companies were worth tens of billions. Nathan stared at her. You're telling me. She nodded slightly. Yes. You're a billionaire? The room fell completely silent. Nathan ran his hand through his hair and began laughing in disbelief. All this time. She smiled softly. You met me as a beggar. He looked at her with a mix of shock and admiration. So, the woman I rescued was never the one who needed saving, she finished. Across the room, Balogun stared in horror. Because if Isabella Okonkwo had stepped into this case personally, then the fraud investigation was only just beginning, and the people behind it were about to face a storm far bigger than Nathan's company. But Nathan had only one thought in his mind. The woman he had fallen in love with was far more powerful than he ever imagined. The boardroom of Adeyemi Holdings remained frozen in disbelief. No one moved. No one spoke. The name Isabella Okonkwo still hung in the air like thunder after a lightning strike. Nathan slowly sat down again, rubbing his temples as if trying to wake from a strange dream. Across the table, the executives whispered nervously among themselves. Everyone in serious African business circles knew the Okonkwo name. The Okonkwo Global Investment Group was one of the largest private financial networks, connected to industries from energy to international logistics. Their investments stretched across Africa, Europe, and parts of Asia. And now the woman they had quietly mocked as a street beggar was standing calmly in their boardroom. Nathan looked up again. You're serious? She nodded. Yes. He let out a long breath. So the woman I picked up from the street was testing the world, she finished gently. Nathan stared at her. You were testing me? Not intentionally, she said calmly, but life forced me into a position where I had to step away from everything. The room listened closely now. even the accused executives. Nathan folded his arms. Explain. She walked slowly to the head of the conference table. Her presence had changed completely. The softness she carried before was still there, but now there was also authority. I stepped away from my company 6 months ago, she began. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Why would a billionaire suddenly become a beggar? She gave a faint smile. Because money hides people's real faces. The room went quiet. She continued. My family company went through an internal power struggle. Some partners wanted control. I needed to disappear for a while to identify who I could trust. Nathan shook his head slowly. So you pretended to be homeless? I simplified my life, she corrected calmly. A few executives exchanged stunned looks. Nathan almost laughed. That's one way to simplify. She looked at him. And that is when you found me. For a moment the tension in the room softened. Nathan leaned back in his chair. I still can't believe this. She tilted her head slightly. You believed I was a beggar without questioning it. He pointed at her jokingly. You were literally begging on the street. I was observing, she said. Nathan laughed despite himself. Observing Lagos traffic? Observing people, she replied. Then her expression softened. You were the only one who didn't treat me like I was invisible. Nathan's smile faded slightly. He remembered that day clearly. The quiet dignity in her voice. The way she spoke about life rearranging people's positions. Everything suddenly made sense. Across the room, Balogun cleared his throat nervously. Sir, he said quietly. Nathan's expression hardened immediately. He turned toward the disgraced CFO. You're still here? Security officers standing near the door stepped forward. Nathan spoke coldly. Balogun and the other corrupt executives were quickly surrounded. Sir, please, we can explain. Nathan didn't even look at them. Save it for the police. Within moments they were led out of the room. The heavy door shut behind them. Silence returned. Nathan exhaled slowly and sat back down. Well, he said finally, that escalated quickly. A few remaining executives laughed nervously. Nathan looked at Isabella again. So what happens now? She folded her arms thoughtfully. Now we rebuild. He smiled faintly. Easy for you to say. My company just lost billions. She shrugged lightly. Money is replaceable. Nathan chuckled. That's a very billionaire thing to say. She smiled. Speaking of which, she tapped the tablet again and projected another screen onto the boardroom display. This time, the numbers looked very different. Investment projections, debt recovery strategies, operational restructuring. Nathan's eyebrows rose slowly. You prepared a recovery plan? Yes. When? Last night. Nathan leaned closer to the screen. Her strategy was brilliant. Reduce redundant departments. Introduce automated auditing systems. Freeze suspicious vendor contracts. Restructure international partnerships. It wasn't just damage control. It was a full corporate transformation. Nathan looked at her with admiration. You're dangerous. She smiled. I prefer efficient. One of the executives finally spoke. Sir, if we implement this strategy, the company could recover within 18 months. Nathan looked at Isabella again. 18 months? She nodded. Possibly faster. Nathan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Then he said something that surprised everyone in the room. Then you're joining the company. She blinked. Excuse me? Nathan grinned. You clearly already run it better than half my staff. She laughed. I didn't come here to run your company. Too late, Nathan replied. He stood and walked closer to her. Isabella Okonkwo, billionaire investor. He gestured around the room dramatically. Would you consider becoming my partner? The room held its breath. She raised an eyebrow. Business partner or life partner? Nathan smiled slowly. I was hoping both. For a moment, the powerful billionaire woman who had controlled the entire situation looked slightly amused. You are very bold, she said. I'm Nigerian, he replied proudly. She laughed softly, and somewhere inside that laughter was the answer Nathan had been hoping for. But neither of them realized yet. The fraud inside Adeyemi Holdings was only the surface. because the powerful forces who had tried to destroy Nathan's empire were about to realize something terrifying. They had accidentally created an alliance between two billionaires. By evening, the news had already begun spreading quietly through the elite business circles of Lagos. Nathan Adeyemi had discovered a massive fraud inside his company. Several senior executives had been removed, and somehow, mysteriously, a woman named Isabella Okonkwo was now involved in the investigation. For those who understood the weight of that name, the situation suddenly became far more serious. Inside Nathan's Ikoyi mansion, the atmosphere felt very different from the tension of the morning. Warm ambient lights glowed across the living room. The walls displayed bold contemporary Nigerian art pieces, while the cream-colored sofas and dark wood accents created a calm, luxurious environment. Nathan sat on the wide sectional couch, loosening his tie. Across from him, Isabella stood near the window overlooking the lagoon. She was quiet, thoughtful. Nathan watched her for a moment. "So," he said finally. She turned slightly. "So?" He gestured around the room. "Are you going to explain how a woman from one of Africa's richest investment families ended up pretending to beg on the streets of Lagos?" She smiled faintly. "You still sound shocked." "I am shocked." He stood and walked closer. "You could have just told me who you were." She folded her arms. "And then what would have happened?" Nathan paused. "You would have treated me differently," she continued. "You would have been careful with every word, every action." He opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. She was right. He would have. "You met me as a human being," she said gently, "not as a billionaire." Nathan nodded slowly. "Fair point." They stood quietly for a moment. Then Nathan chuckled. "You know Lagos social media is probably melting right now." She laughed. "I can imagine." "Yesterday they called you a beggar," he continued. "And today, they'll call you mysterious billionaire queen." She shook her head, amused. "People love dramatic stories." Nathan raised his glass. "Well, we definitely gave them one." Later that night they moved to the mansion's rooftop terrace. The view of the city lights stretching across Lagos was breathtaking. Soft lanterns glowed along the edges of the terrace, and the Atlantic breeze carried distant sounds of nightlife from Victoria Island. Nathan leaned against the railing. "You saved my company today." She stood beside him. "You were already capable of saving it." "Maybe," he said, "but I didn't see the problem." She nodded. "That's the danger of success." He looked at her. "How so?" "Success can blind leaders," she explained. "You start trusting systems that should be constantly tested." Nathan sighed. "You sound like my business professor from years ago." "Good professors are usually right." They both laughed. Then Nathan grew serious again. "There's something else bothering me." "What?" "Balogun." She raised an eyebrow. "You think he's hiding something?" "Yes," Nathan said quietly. "He admitted to the fraud too quickly." She nodded slowly. "I noticed that too." Nathan turned toward her. "You think someone else is behind it?" Her expression grew thoughtful. "Large fraud schemes rarely operate alone." Nathan exhaled. "So someone bigger might be pulling the strings." "Possibly." He stared out across the city again. "If that's true, then exposing Balogun might only be the beginning." She looked at him calmly. "It usually is." Nathan studied her face again. "You seem very comfortable with this level of conflict." She smiled slightly. "When you run global investment networks, conflict becomes part of the job." He laughed. "Right. Billionaire problems." The next morning, news channels across Nigeria began reporting the scandal. Inside Adeyemi Holdings, forensic auditors had already begun examining every department. Meanwhile, inside a private office in another part of Lagos, 3 powerful men watched the news on a large television screen. One of them muted the broadcast. "So it's true," he said slowly. Another man leaned back in his chair. "Yes." The third man spoke quietly. "And the woman involved?" "The same one." The first man sighed. "This complicates things." "Very much," the second replied. "Because if she's really Isabella Okonkwo." The room fell silent. The third man finished the sentence calmly. Then Nathan Adeyemi is no longer fighting alone. Back at Nathan's mansion, he walked into the kitchen to find Isabella reviewing financial reports again on her tablet. "You're working already?" he asked. She looked up. "Someone has to keep your empire alive." He laughed. "You're enjoying this too much." She tilted her head. "Maybe." Nathan leaned against the counter. "You know something?" "What?" "My life was simpler before I met you." She smiled mischievously. "Boring, you mean?" He nodded slowly. "Yes." Then he added with a grin, "But I think I like complicated better." She laughed softly. But deep down, both of them knew the truth. The fraud inside Nathan's company was only the first layer. Somewhere in Lagos, powerful enemies were watching closely, and they were already planning their next move, because two billionaires joining forces could threaten empires far beyond Adeyemi Holdings. When Nathan thought the worst was over, the real danger is only beginning. The fraud inside Adeyemi Holdings was not just an inside job. It was part of a much bigger plan. A plan designed to destroy Nathan's empire from the shadows. Now that the truth is out, powerful enemies hiding in the elite circles of Lagos are beginning to panic. Because Nathan is no longer alone. Standing beside him is Isabella Okonkwo, the mysterious woman the world once mocked as a beggar, but who secretly controls one of the most powerful investment networks in Africa. Together, they are about to uncover a conspiracy that goes far deeper than stolen money. But the real question is, who is the powerful mastermind behind the fraud? How far are they willing to go to protect their secrets? And will Nathan and Isabella's love survive when the battle for power turns dangerous? In the next chapter, a secret enemy finally steps into the light. A shocking attack on Nathan's company. Isabella reveals a strategy that could change the balance of power. And a confrontation that could shake Lagos' business empire forever. The game has changed. The masks are falling. And the war for control has just begun. Stay tuned, because the next part will reveal a truth no one saw coming. If you're on the edge of your seat and can't wait to see what happens next, make sure you like this video to show your support. Don't miss a single twist. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you're the first to watch every shocking chapter of Nathan and Isabella's story. Trust me, the next part will change everything you thought you knew.